Hello, good morning. As I'm sure you know, the 9th edition of UNVEX UnvexLive is already underway with Barcelona on the horizon. From June 4 to 6 next year, in 2024, this event, the only one in Europe addressed at the entire uncrewed systems community, will take place in that city, and with the ambition of being more international than ever. I remind you that UnvexLive to integrate all applications, transport, security, and commercial on all domains, air, sea, and land, to generate a truly professional conversation for all stakeholders. This webinar opens the way towards this reference appointment and also coincides with the launch of the latest issue of the Profiles IDS publication series entitled Unmanned Systems, an overview and perspective of a multi-domain reality. It is a bilingual edition, Spanish and English, that can now be downloaded for free through the infodron.es and infodefensa.com websites. Well, we have with us today some of the greatest experts in the sector. With us will be José Agrelo Llaverol, acting head of the International Research, Development and Innovation Planning Unit of the Directorate General of Armaments and Material in the Ministry of Defense. Mr. Agrelo, acting is coordinator of NATO's Science and Technology Organization and is fully involved in the European Defense Fund and in NATO's innovation initiatives, Diana and NATO Innovation Fund. We will also be joined in this webinar by Marta Cejuela Martín, Principal Safety and Regulatory Consultant at Avionica Solutions SLP company. Mrs. Cejuela is specialized in consulting services for UAS manufacturers and operators, supporting them to comply with the UAS European and International Regulation for Operational Safety, SORA, and design requirements. And we will have the intervention of Ed Alvarado, Head of Communications and Global Partnerships at John Industry Insights, that is the reference platform for information of this area in Europe. Mr. Alvarado has recently delivered a keynote speeches at the John World Conference 2023 in Shenzhen, China, and the Global Drone Conference in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. After their presentation, we will have a few minutes to answer some questions that you can already leave us in this application. But before starting, we are proud to have the Secretary General of Transport and Urban Mobility, María José Rayo del Olmo, who will give an introductory speech to this session. Mrs. Rayo, you can start whenever you want. Turn on your microphone and your camera. Hello.
Hello, thank you very much, Ginés. It's okay, the sound?
It's okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Good morning to everybody. And first of all, I'd like to thank the organization and especially its director, Ángel Macho, for his invitation to participate as a representative of the Ministry of Transport, Mobility and the Urban Agenda of Spain in the opening of this webinar with the title Perspectives on a Multi-Domain Reality, to present the digital platform UnvexLive in preparation for the on-site edition of UnvexLive 2024. And congratulations for the initiative, because I'm sure that the platform UnvexLive is going to be an essential tool until the celebration of this new edition of UnvexLive next year in Barcelona. An edition that aims to attract an international audience and become really the European event of reference, the one-stop shop for remotely operated and autonomous systems, an event that counts with the support of our ministry. In Spain, UnvexLive has become the reference event on this type of aircrafts in the security and defense field, in which major companies of the sector participate and where the most complex and innovative technologies in this segment have been shown. But UnvexLive is not only security and defense, but also transport, commercial uses, and many other applications. I am aware that the Defense and Interior departments make extensive use of these platforms, benefiting from the significant advances and efficiencies that this technology offers. In the civilian sphere, unlike other public administrations, we have the opportunity to use this technology in applications as diverse as environmental protection, infrastructure inspection, and search and rescue, among others. In fact, the drone sector has become an innovative and disruptive element with such an impact that some people believed it could bring about a total transformation of the air transport system as we know it today. The use of the drones is becoming more and more integrated in our daily lives, and as the applications and services are steadily increasing, allowing different sectors to improve their efficiency and productivity. All this, moreover, with important benefits for society, both in public services and private companies, because drones contribute to the improvement of efficiencies, as I mentioned before, safety, and environmental protections of numerous production processes. In Spain, the civil sector is growing very rapidly. We have more than 90,000 registered operators, more than 170,000 pilot certificates, and more than 870 training organizations. And although there is still a long way to go before the sector could deploy its full potential, the enormous flexibility of the applications of this sector also brings risks associated to its use, such as damage to people or property, threats to other airspace users, invasion of privacy, etc. Therefore, combining and balancing the development of the sector while maintaining the current levels of service and safety is essential and has been a major challenge for Spain and especially for our ministry at both the regulatory and operational levels. Public administrations must work in two complementary areas of this thriving activity. On the one hand, is ensuring the safety of operations and the protections of people and property. And on the other hand, by facilitating the development of the sector. So, in the ministry, through the Directorate General of Civil Aviation, the Spanish Aviation Safety Agency, AESA, and the public ATM provider, ENAIRE, we consider unmanned systems a strategic sector for the country, and therefore we promote the development of this segment of activity in three main lines of action. The first one as regulators and supervisors of the sector, which is undoubtedly a key factor for its development. The second one as facilitators of the entire drone ecosystem. And finally, and mainly through ENAIRE, as promoters of pilot projects. From a safety standpoint, AESA plays a key role in the field of innovation and development. Due to the great potential of the sector, our sustainable mobility strategy for 2030 includes a specific line of action to promote the use of drones in many areas. And we foster an intense participation in the dissemination and promotion of the sector, organizing and participating in forums, conferences, and events. The regulation in this field needs to adapt very quickly to innovation. And so the European Aviation Safety Agency, EASA, has proposed to the European Commission a regulatory framework for innovative air mobility addressing new operational and mobility concepts based on innovative technologies. I think this is going to be a key point for the development of the sector. And it must also be highlighted the EU space regulation and the development of this important concept on which Europe continues to take steps towards its deployment. In this regard, I'd like to point out that Spain has a very advanced position in this matter. As you may know, our ministry has promoted a national action plan for the deployment of EU space with important coordination measures with the main stakeholders and ministerial departments, and has initiated the first airspace safety study with the support of Eurocontrol. In the more technological dimension, ENAIRE is carrying out important developments of the centralized platform that will allow us to articulate EU space in Spain in an orderly manner. In short, there is a lot of work ahead, but with the effort and the coordination of all of us, we can move forward and make Spain a reference in the field of drones at international levels. Thanks to UNVEX, the organizers, for the opportunity to participate in the opening of this webinar. I am sure that the next year edition of UNVEX will be a great success. The ministry's doors will always be open to contribute to develop this sector to its full potential. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Rayo, Secretary General of Transport and Urban Mobility. It was a pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Well, now, for a moment, the Director of UNVEX and CAO of IDS, Ángel Macho, also greets us before starting. Mr. Agrelo, this turn is for Ángel Macho. Wait a second. Thank you. Mr. Macho, what do you want?
Thank you very much, Ginés, well, thank you very much to Maria Jose Rayo, General Secretary. I sincerely appreciate your participation. I remember when you opened the first UnvexLive in 2020, in the middle of the COVID pandemic. So it is especially a pleasure to have today here again and to hear the good news. I think that your department play a very important role in the development of this market and this sector. So it is important to know how many things are done and how many things have to be done, and the speed, of course, that is one of the key points. Maintaining the balance between the speed, the necessity, and the necessity of the regulation is essential. I think you are doing a great job in that sense. Thank you very much. And welcome to the first webinar of UnvexLive that form part of the launching of UnvEx 24 that will take place, as you know, in Barcelona next year in June. Well, 13 years after our first edition, many things have changed. It's true that many things have changed, but many others remain and are still part of the discussion. During this time, UnvEx has been working alongside the sector in its evolution, being part of it, providing a meeting point for all the stakeholders and promoting the exchange of knowledge that is part of our main targets. The scenario have changed in terms of the appearance or emergence of new application and the extension of a managed system to other domains like land and sea. It is also a sector that goes beyond local borders, since its regulation affects transnational spaces and critical environment like the airspace. Those realities today are the base for us to accept a new challenge for UnvEx next year. In this occasion, and after 8 editions, where we have been international and we have some international presence, but we want to go beyond and make UnvEx a real international event, especially European, I must say, but international. And the other point is transversality. The idea, as Secretary General was advancing, is to open our event to all the stakeholders, either commercial, transport, or defense, because I'm sure that there is a lot to learn from each other. Well, I don't take more of your time, because the important things today is to hear the speakers who are the experts and to whom I want to thank you very much for their participation. Welcome to UnvexLive and see you in Barcelona. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Macho. Well, let's go to our first speaker, José Agrelo, Acting Head of the International Research Development and Innovation Planning Unit of the Directorate General of Armaments and Material. Mr. Agrelo, good morning.
Good morning, everyone. In
It's
my
your
presentation, okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone, again. In my presentation, I will be sharing with you a few technological perspectives on the emerging multi-domain reality from the Spanish MOD, from its research and innovation branch. Next chart, please. Okay. The integration of multi-domain operations with unmanned systems and vice versa, because this is a two-way interaction to be reinforced in the short and medium term, is transforming defense to meet complex future challenges, requiring integrated superiority across all warfare domains in response to evolving geopolitical dynamics. On the strategic impacts of such unstoppable integration, we can highlight multi-domain superiority, which is vital for disrupting advanced enemy capabilities, unpredictable warfare, unmanned systems create novel options for commanders, and cost effectiveness. Unmanned systems provide operational efficiency within defense budgets. And as for the operational implications, we can highlight in the situational awareness branch that unmanned systems supply a sensory network for real-time intelligence. Under the mission resilience aspect, redundancy ensures mission integrity against asset attrition, and synchronized effects require that coordinated unmanned systems deliver overwhelming and timely responses. Next chart, please. In our view, the role of the unmanned systems in multi-domain operations is one that should provide versatile integration. Inherent versatility allows unmanned systems to be pivotal in land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace operations, and capability enhancement. They provide new capabilities essential for the full potential of multi-domain operations. We also find an intertwining between paradigms in two key spheres and across all domains. The relationship between strategy and technology, because there is an interplay in fostering advancements in military strategy and technological development, and the need for seamless integration. We aim for a future where integration across all domains is fundamental. Some operational examples: persistent ISR, for example, UAS deliver continuous intelligence, surpassing manned asset capabilities, essential for informed command decisions. Human risk reduction, all kinds of unmanned systems minimize risks in extreme conditions, enhancing safety in dull, dirty, and dangerous environments. Swarming tactics, autonomous swarms overwhelm defenses, posing multiple challenges to enemy response capabilities, and extended outreach. Small satellites and high-altitude UAVs take multi-domain operations to space and near space, offering critical global communication and ISR support. Next chart, please. Okay. This convergence of multi-domain operations and unmanned systems drives and makes use of innovation and technology development. Just to expand in a concept I mentioned in the previous slide, some key and emerging technological drivers are artificial intelligence and machine learning, which are essential for data analysis, decision-making, and autonomous unmanned system operations. Robotics, sophisticated unmanned systems for a range of missions adaptable to dynamic scenarios. Swarm technologies, coordination of numerous small systems for collective objectives across domains. Cyber resilience, vital cybersecurity for protecting data and communication integrity in multi-domain operations. Quantum tech, which offers advances in secure communication, encryption, and data processing. In the next slide, we can also look at more drivers like power systems, enhanced endurance for unmanned systems with improved batteries and power sources, satellite systems, global communications, ISR and PNT services via low orbit satellites for domain coordination, network-centric warfare capabilities, links all battlefield elements via advanced communication networks like 5G, human-machine teaming, evolving interfaces for complex operations and control of multiple units, stealth technologies to minimize detection and improve unmanned system survivability, and electronic warfare and countermeasures critical for dominating the electromagnetic spectrum and detecting assets. Next, please. What do we drag from in order to articulate our approach to this trending topic? Well, from our National Technology and Innovation Strategy, which is a public reference tool which aims to facilitate coordination and alignment of the ministry's technological research and innovation activities in order to attain specific objectives directly linked to the required military capabilities. It also serves as an essential instrument to foster cooperation between different national and international stakeholders. The strategy is arranged around three main pillars. You can see on the slide those three pillars. I will concentrate on the first one, the technological objectives. But before going to the next slide, I would like to mention that the defense research and technology and innovation strategy is part of our national strategic network of strategies, and we are part of the Spanish strategy for science, technology, and innovation. So next slide, please. Here on the technological objectives, among our national strategies technological objectives, and for the purpose of today's topic, I would pick the following considerations and items. First consideration is that many of the technologies relevant to multi-domain operations are indeed addressed in the Defense R&D strategy from 2020. It is worth mentioning that those related to connectivity architectures, public cloud, and unmanned platforms are very relevant ones. And on the graph, we can see the flow of work regarding all the technological objectives we have defined from the multi-domain operations topic. Of course, there is a substrate, which is constituted by the emerging and low maturity technologies with future defense application. Then we work on the technologies themselves. From the 7 technological objectives, we have chosen those 7 that you can see on the graph. And then, of course, as our work is always application oriented, end users oriented, operational users oriented, we are thinking of the integration of systems and subsystems in the multi-domain operations. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, thank you. With all this background in mind, we can draw the following conclusions for action as the Deputy Directorate for Planning of Research and Innovation. First one is that information exchange and communication capabilities are the key element in enabling multi-domain operations. There are numerous technological challenges needed to be addressed. There are different R&D projects currently underway in the European Defence Fund. There is a list on the slide, and there are plans to undertake and reinforce our research, development, and innovation activities in this area at national level in collaboration with our international partners. Next slide, please. In this slide, there is I won't go for any of the examples, but we have examples of projects, of activities going on relating unmanned ground vehicles in support of the soldier, for example, robotization of manned platforms and convoys of vehicles, and integration of UAVs and experimentation. This is from the ground domain. In the next slide, we are showing the some activities that we have in place regarding unmanned surface vehicles and unmanned underwater systems. For example, one worth mentioning is the last one at the bottom right, which is deriving from the European Defence Industrial Development Programme of the European Commission, coming from the calls of 2020. And in the next slide, regarding remotely piloted aircraft systems, we have also a very important national and international projects going on. For example, at the middle, in the upper part of the slide, we have the enhanced ARPA's automation project, which in its second phase. It is one of our priorities so far, and it is being held under the European Defence Agency remit. We also have activities in GNSS for navigation, and of course, sensors for ARPAs. And my last slide comes with a summary and conclusions of our action in this emerging domain. The integration of multi-domain operations with unmanned systems, or vice versa, because, as I said before, this is a two-way interaction, is transforming defense to meet complex future challenges, requiring integrated military superiority across all warfare domains in response to evolving geopolitical dynamics. Then the information exchange and communication capabilities are key elements in enabling multi-domain operations. Numerous technological challenges need to be addressed to achieve multi-domain capabilities. And last one, several research, development, and innovation projects are currently underway at the national level and within the framework of the European Defence Fund and the European Defence Agency, both in terms of information exchange and communication capabilities and the use of unmanned systems. I also have to mention, because I'm the national coordinator for the Science and Technology Organization, that also in the Science and Technology Organization, there are ongoing activities where, and this is a piece of advertisement, where national stakeholders can take part in order to benefit from information exchanges among experts in the field. So this is the end of my presentation. I will be ready for questions at the end of the session. So back to the organizer.
Thank you, Mr. Bruno. Yes, we at the moment will leave questions for later for our questions time. We are now going to address more civil issues related to the regulatory framework and so on. For that, we have Marta Cejuela with us. Mrs. Cejuela is Principal Safety and Regulatory Consultant at Avionica Solution SLP company. Mrs. Cejuela, it's your turn. Whenever you want, you can now turn. Okay. Hello, good morning, Mrs. Cejuela.
Good morning.
Whenever you want.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to be here and give the opportunity also to Avionica to be present here. So I would like to introduce you what about if we do a time lapse of the regulatory framework. No? What was the market perspective and what was the, thanks to the evolution of the regulation, and what was the impact, for example, last 3 years, and what is ongoing, what is the next, what could happen. So the first thing was, if you remember, the FAA in 2016 publishes the first Part 107, but later in European framework, EASA, and for sure the rest of the member states supporting the development of the regulation, started and put a regulation that was related to the US operation that entered into force at the end of the 2020, but practically we started to use in January 1st. So yes, when you were a US operator or manufacturer, you have an aircraft, you have the platform, perfect. What happened? And then we discovered that, as you can see in the slide, a lot of challenge stands. So the first that we can set is like, yes, I have the aircraft, but was designed in according with the standard? We haven't, because we have for aviation. I mean, for defense, from the bigger aircraft, but yes, time to time it's true in defense we have a standard, but not adapted to the commercial. And then we started to say, okay, we have a different use case that we can use the technology. So we will sell to the market. And what happens? Well, we can have this example, no? What about to spray pesticides? Okay, the problem was not the regulation of the drone. The problem was that was not possible to spray pesticides in an area of work. So other cross regulatory framework need to also update it to allow to scale up the business and the use of drones. It was also the case that, okay, we want to go to the urban because everybody talk about logistics. Okay, let's go to the, no, but we are not sure because it's okay, but there were a lot of interpretations in the member states. We can do, what about, yes, it's not, you don't put risk on the area that you are overflown. What about the adjacent area? But this is sparsely populated, it's not. So there were a lot of things to really mature. And also when said, okay, I will do cross-border, but you can see that different interpretation between the state members. Or what about the training? Yes, a lot of training organizations, like Maria Jose pointed out before, we have in Europe and also around the worldwide. But maybe it was for a small aircraft, but not bigger than 25 kilos. So time to time you said, what is the skill that I needed to hire, or what I need to train to the people? What about the maintenance organization? So were a lot of questions. But if we go to the regulation, time to time you said, oh, perfect, I have a new company that is interested to test in the research and development department to use the drone as technology in their business. What happened? Okay, go away and part from Europe and go to America, United States. Albeit this FAA belongs to JARUS and SORA, that is a specific operation risk assessment, a methodology that in Europe we use, they don't use it. And you need to follow and need to ask for a waiver or a type certificate. So, and the regulation was not ready. Okay, what about to go to South America? Perfect, I have a perfect business in Colombia. And then you discover that also they are really open to try the innovation. They have not the legal framework to allow you to do this kind of operation. And we can continue, it said, okay, but I want to try to do logistics in the cities, but what about vertiport? Because we are always thinking vertiport like you can take off on land, but maybe big drones. What about the small one? If we want to land in a field that the property is a person, what happens? Can I, cannot? What sets the regulation in the city, in the town? Maybe it's drone-friendly city, maybe not. So time to time, the regulation and depends from the cities. Or what about the airspace? Is controlled and uncontrolled? What about the uncontrolled? Because in the past, just the emergency services use the cities maybe to land or to take off an helicopter, but it's not controlled. So time to time, when you also try to demonstrate the technology in the cities, you need to coordinate and put a lot of team members there that cost and is not efficient, the operation. So to scale up is a disaster. So, and also scarcity. What happened with the noise, the visual impact? Who is considering all this new traffic that we will include and add to the cities? What about the security? Because depend on the different member states. So there are a lot of challenges behind of us when we want to implement a very mature regulatory framework. So they need to promote the innovation, the development of the drone sector, because if they don't allow to test, it's not possible to continue the development. Ensure and have a uniform level of safety, enable safe operation in the US space, UTM airspace. Harmonize is key, as I explained. It was not possible, different interpretation, also with the same regulation. Time to time, in Europe, you can see that also it's not allowed yet, albeit we have the European regulation, and they cannot fly also in open category, small drones. And for sure need to be proportionate on the risk and performance basis, because we need to consider what is the real risk, what is the small drone, what are the size of the platform, what is the risk. We cannot demand the same like a big aircraft. And for sure, we face up a problem that was a lack of a standard adjusted for drones and UTM, vertiport. And if we continue it, if we can take a picture of today, nowadays, that what about the regulation? There are a lot, there are more, but it was not possible to put in one slide. So we have the European, as I explained, you follow JARUS, the SORA, for example, for operation, and still we have back and forth with we need not a certificate like in America. We can see a design verification with an organization approval. You can have Japanese that follow the United States. You have UK that, although after Brexit was intended to approve and enter into force 2020, that they can join. Today, you need to demonstrate why SORA is a good option to perform analysis in the operation. You have today, 1 month ago, that finally Colombia has a new regulation. You have Transport Canada, Brazil also is joined to JARUS, SORA. You have for sure Australia that is so advanced. You have, for example, like my company Avionica is supporting with in the Emirate of Dubai to also implement a new regulation with SORA, based on SORA and the standard. We have for sure, I want to thank all the people that collaborate and time to time spend a lot of hours, time to time voluntary, to make possible to scale up the business and do it, this organization. And at the end, I would like to finish to say what next. Well, there are a lot of things that will happen next year. So we have a new, thanks to the last 3 years and the real service experience, we can have a new SORA that take into a conclusion like what is especially, what was populated, to put figure, to put number, that also allow to really scale up the business. We have the US space implementation. We have, for example, in Europe, the UWelcome project with 15 locations in Italy, Spain, and France to test, deploy, mature US space solution, allow to real, to include and to all this kind of operation in urban areas. We have also from the next year also that to sell the drone in Europe, you also need to have a CE level mark, C0, C6, but don't forget that also drones that also are more than 25 kilos need also the CE level. Without this indicated the category, need to obtain this level for sure. And we cannot forget, this is a really success, that now for Safe 3 operation that is low risk, we can set medium risk in the to urban areas. Finally, EASA decided to give the National Aviation Authority in Europe to do the declaration of the design requirements. So this will be really accelerate and do possible to see the drones in the urban environment. So thank you, and I hope that you have a really success in the next year with your business.
Thank you, Mrs. Tejuela. Well, the following is the last intervention before question time. Ed Alvarado is going to tell us some of the sector forecasts prepared by Drone Industry Insights, where Mr. Alvarado is head of communications and global partnerships. Mr. Alvarado, you can start now. Turn on your microphone and your camera.
Let's see, I think.
Good morning.
Good, sound coming through?
Perfect, whenever you want.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I think I will wait for 1 second to see if the infographics, there they are. Awesome. So basically, I just want to provide a little bit of an overview of what from our research, what we've seen basically and what the current commercial market is. And I'm going to do a brief comparison of the world versus Spain. And basically the whole presentation is here, so you don't have to miss out anything. You can focus on each part of the infographic as we go along. One thing worth noting here is that this is commercial drones. So this is not military drones, and this is also not recreational drones. And so therefore, if some of the kind of numbers seem kind of like, well, I've heard something different, that's the first part. It's that we are actually focusing on these specific things, which is commercial, not recreational, not military. The other thing is that this data is not part of our full in-depth research. This is actually all based on a survey that we do every year. And so you can see on the right side, I believe, you can see what the responses that we got this year from around the globe, and then the responses that we got from Spain on the left side. And so if we focus a little bit more all the way on the right side on both infographics, you can see that the market is pretty highly dominated by small companies. So around the world is about 71% of companies that are 50 employees or less. If you look at on the Spain side, it's 77%. So there are a lot of small companies that are active in the commercial world. One reason is precisely because sometimes you don't really need that many people to carry out the drone tasks, right? Like if you have a good pilot that can carry out the different tasks, it's easy for startups to actually, basically start their operations and start offering their services. I'll get to services here in a minute, but you can see the pattern from the graphs that there's a lot of small companies and then there's some bigger companies, but for the most part, there is not so many companies that are around mid-size. So here the breakdown is, from 1 to 10, 11 to 50. And so even though you still have, say 6% of companies with more than 2,500 employees in Spain, and I believe it was 9% or 6. Yeah, 9% with more than 1,000 in the world. It's still not so many compared to what you have that are 50 employees or less. And so why is this? You can see that now I go into a little bit of the center of the graphic, drone services, right? So service providers are, basically there's different ones that you can see in the breakdown here. The biggest part here is the companies that actually do some sort of inspection, some sort of delivery, that essentially offer service using a drone. Now, normally we have only a breakdown between hardware, software, and services. Here, the services get broken down into a bit more specific types of groupings. So you can see, for example, another pattern that we find is that the second biggest, essentially, besides other, which groups many, you see there's training and education. You can see that in both the world and in Spain, it's essentially the #2 category. And that's a very good sign because it shows that there are actually companies who can start a business on teaching people how to use a drone to do LiDAR inspections, to do, obviously deliveries once the regulation comes into place for everything. But at the end of the day, there is a lot of activity on teaching people how to use a drone to carry out tasks that up until now were more inefficiently done by a person or by some sort of other machinery or something. And so then this is what gets us also to, I'm going to go through the priorities and challenges first, and then I'll go to the optimism. But essentially, what are the company's priorities, right? And so we see that pretty much everywhere in every country that we look at, marketing and sales are the top 2 things. On the one hand, this is because there is less focus now on hardware because it's already there, and software because it's constantly evolving, but it's also kind of already there. So now, the big goal for most companies and essentially for the drone industry as a whole is to to explain to people what the benefit is of using a drone. So this is where marketing comes in. So instead of somebody saying, for a wind turbine, like, oh, we have employees that we send, for a full day or a couple of days to go do an inspection for wind turbine. No, you have a drone that actually can carry out the task, sometimes autonomously, and it's essentially marketing these benefits to show, maybe drones are actually going to be able to make a huge difference on these things, and it's not so much worrying about, the noise or the privacy issues that people overly worry about, even though they're not such a big factor. I mean, I can tell you personally, when I fly my little drone, sometimes people think it's going to be noisy, and then once it gets a little bit high, it's fine. You can't hear it. So again, the marketing is becoming more and more important because the products in terms of hardware and software are there. And then another part of this is sales, right? So I said marketing and sales. Now, sales is becoming obviously a lot more important because, as I mentioned, you have a lot of small companies and you have some big companies, but the midpoint is a bit more difficult because sometimes companies can get initial funding and investments to start, and that's where you get a lot of startups. But at some point, it's harder for them to grow. They need to create more of their own revenue besides the funding that they might get. And again, this is where the previously mentioned topic of regulation becomes important. So there has to be a legal framework that allows operations to happen depending on a city or town or country. And that's the part that is kind of preventing some of the smaller companies from scaling up. But as soon as those get a bit more implemented and a lot more active, you'll see a lot more things happening, and you can see a lot more companies growing because they're able to do a lot more BVLOS operations at night over people, and all of these advanced operations. And now this brings us also to the challenges, right? So you can see I mentioned regulation, and on the right side on the infographic about the world, you see regulation is the #1 topic. That is pretty much, I mean, I can't say every country because of what I'll say next, but in most countries, regulation is something that people are complaining about or essentially waiting for. Now, Spain, based on our survey, it's not in the top 3 topics. That's actually a quite good sign because Spain also has a really good history of basically taking on the activities in terms of the getting regulations passed, or essentially being an early adopter. So I remember here also that I believe they were early adopters of the EU 2019-947 is basically a regulation that became European wide, but Spain was among the countries that said, okay, let's get this going first. And that's also why you see a lot of places that you have testing centers. This is also a big makeup of the respondents that we have in the infographic. You have areas where there's companies like German companies, I think Lilium has their testing center over there. So there's a lot more happening in Spain because they were able to take on, to start implementing some regulations or to allow people to do a lot more activities with drones before they were officially passed throughout the rest of the EU or the world. Now, going back to kind of the concerns, so you see inflation was a big topic this year. Inflation is a temporary topic, so we see it everywhere, but it's something that in a year or two, it's probably not going to be as big of a topic. In Spain, what you do have is a bit of a, so you mentioned, saw that some of the respondents are concerned with domestic politics or geopolitics, so essentially politics. And so this is, I mean, this is always caused whether it's external competition, so you have, China and the US kind of banning each other's this and that, or having some sort of concerns. You can also have a bit of like internal, we can define that politics also as a bit of a competitive rather than collaborative culture. So if it's somebody, if it's certain parties within the government, if it's certain conflicts of interest where essentially, or clashes of interest where some people want this, some people want this, and suddenly it's, okay, it's better for everybody to pass the regulation. But if there's a bit more of a competition culture being built, that's what can create a bit of friction. So then this is where a bit of the politics aspect comes in play. But at the end of the day, if we now focus on the bottom left, we can see that the optimism is quite high everywhere. So I say quite high because, of course, a couple of years ago, we saw optimism of up to 7.1, 7.5, and it was very extreme optimism after the pandemic, which didn't materialize. So I think throughout the world, we're seeing companies are optimistic again, but less so than they were before the pandemic. I could say a lot more about all this data or forecasts that we have, but I think I will keep it here for now so that we still have at least 10 minutes for the Q&A. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Alvarado. By the way, we have some of these fantastic industry drone insights infographics in our publication too. Well, return, please, Mr. Alvarado, stay with us. I ask Mr. Agrelo and Mrs. Cejuela to join us again because we have reached question time. And the first question is for Mr. Agrelo. How can collaboration on drone technology between the civil and military sectors be improved?
Thank you for the question. This is an easy one. As you know, today the scenario is much more different than it was 20 years ago or 30 years ago, when there was a clear distinction between in that technological and industrial stakeholders serving military needs and the rest of stakeholders serving the civilian scenario. Today, there is no distinction, almost no distinction between both environments, and experts from the technological and industrial base are experts both for the military domain and for the civilian domain. So there is a very rich exchange of expertise of experts and even of needs at the lower level of TRL. And we could say that there is a fusion or a merger between both environments. So it is easy to see the whole thing as for the vast majority of technological and industrial experts which have dwarfed the defense domain in recent years, it is easy for them to consider that there are many of opportunities to apply their knowledge, and their efforts in creating new knowledge is increased with the new opportunities that emerge in the defense side. For example, the European Defense Fund is offering over almost 8,000 million euros for a 7-year period, which is adding to what we had already in place before it was set up in 2021. I mean, in present day conditions, defense and civilian sites share a lot, and there are a lot of spillovers between one domain to the other and vice versa. So I think for the sake of synergy and for the sake of complementarity and in order to avoid duplications, I think that menus offered by both sides are today merged and can be for our experts a source of increased possibilities for participation and expression of their capabilities to create new knowledge.
Thank you. Mrs. Cejuela, next for you. Do you think we will see drones operating under Sail 3 or 4 operation authorization next 2024 in Europe? Turn on your microphone. Don't worry. Let's start again.
Yes, for sure. This is intention. In the case IASA and also AESA, the National Spanish NAA or CAA, is trying to support in order that in that more or less in the third quarter of 2024, granting the first operational authorization in SAIL 3. And also for SAIL 4, we will have very soon sent to the Standard Development Organization a set of the means of compliance and also guidelines in order to allow the applicant to obtain also the design verification and the operational authorization. So I'm very optimistic after 4 years working on that.
Thank you very much. Well, Mr. Alvarado, a question for you. Can you tell us something else about the general trends that can we see in the drone industry, please? Turn your microphone.
You said the general trends, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, I mentioned some of the trends where, I mean, there's a big focus on like the role of regulations. There's a lot of small companies being proactive. I think, yeah, I mean, the the big thing is relating to the previous question. One trend is precisely the regulation. Sorry that it comes up, and it's nice when you hear activities happening. But you know, whether we tell you know, an audience that there is something happening with regulation or there isn't, there's always, okay, but we want more or we need more. And so I think that that's the big trend, that, you know, on the one hand, you have the public, you know, people at large, disenchant society kind of wondering, okay, I don't think this drone delivery thing is happening because I don't see them anywhere. And you have the companies that are saying like, but like, I'm just waiting to get the permission to do this and then we could do this. And so at the end of the day, that has to be the main topic. I mean, I think every year we encounter more, you know, whether there is or isn't something happening with regulation, that's the big trend. I mean, if you want more, yeah, specific data on the markets, then yeah, you can ask me that question.
Okay, well, Mr. Agrelo, again, well, this is an area that is advancing very quickly. Do you think drones and their use strategies will be very different in years, for example, in 10, 15 years?
So just to put an example, two years ago, the science and technology trends for 2020 to 2040 from the STO, the NATO Science and Technology Organization, was published, trying to foresee and to devise scenarios how to explain the evolution of technologies that at that time were promising. And just 2.5 years later, they have to remake the report, because in just 2 years, a little more than 2 years, the evolution of the emerging and disruptive technologies, which is a subset of the whole scenario of technologies, the change was so big that it forced the organization to update their foresights and their provisions for 20 years time. It is difficult to look ahead and to establish scenarios, which is a task, a daunting task that is bound to fail, but you have to foresee anyway. And if in the last 2 years there was such a big change that forced to remake the perspectives, in the next 2 years, current expectations for 20 years time ahead will also be changed. So this is constantly changing. There is constant transformation, and you have to be updating every day, and you have to be reprioritizing every day. So but you have to look for plans for the three time periods, the short, the medium, and the long term. So there will be changes, and you have to always be connected with your environment in order to keep pace with the changes that are all around.
Mr. Sejuela, a double question for you. Is the regulation enough mature to scale up the business in the urban areas? And the second one, how will the EU space implementation tests support to achieve it?
Well, I'm more positive than Eduardo. That in the chart they said that the regulatory framework is the problem. No, I totally agree. The last year was a real stopper, but now seems like I explained it first. JARUS will publish in May 2024 the new SORA 2.5. That means that have and try to resolve a lot of stopper and challenge that we faced out the last 3 years. Thanks to that, also EASA could publish in the future a new ED decision, change all this stopper. And as I explained, things that we will publish very soon, the means of compliance for SAFE 3, SAFE 4. This allow practically the bus of the operation will occur in this risk, I mean, between SAFE 3 and 4. And then thanks to also the US-based implementation, because yes, the regulation again was entry to force 2021. The means of compliance was also published. All this period of time during the last 2 years was to develop the software, and now it's time to really put all the actors, stakeholders in the sandbox or test bench in the cities to, as we said, so to the society that this technology is there. Like Eduardo say, where is? Now I think that it's time to show the society to accept and that it is safe for sure. I think 2024 is. Now I'm more optimistic of the last new. I hope that Eduardo next year changes new data.
Okay, well, the last question is for Mr. Alvarado. How important is an event like UnvexLive for the sector?
I mean, it's actually funny because, you know, you almost feel like you need to say yes, but I mean, it is very important. Why? Because as we saw, you know, during the pandemic, there was no events happening, basically everybody was locked in. But that's when drones also got a lot of attention. So topics like delivery or air mobility became, any, normal citizens were hearing about them, because when a person couldn't do certain things, certain inspections and stuff, that's when drone companies said, we can send the drone because they're not on lockdown. And then you also had these companies working on air taxis that went public and they're in financial markets, right? But at the end of the day, people were still in their homes, not seeing this technology, not, talking to the experts working. And so now events started happening, and precisely, I mean, as I think this was discussed before, that there's not really any leading events in Europe. You have some, some here in Germany and Italy, but at the end of the day, because it's easy to travel around Europe, because there's so much kind of information sharing across borders and everything, having events, precisely like UnvexLive, it's actually fantastic, because then you have the experts can get together from all around Europe or around the world. And then you also have like people that can actually come see what this technology is actually doing, how it can provide benefits. And so at the end of the day, events are becoming even more and more important, because it's a way for the experts to connect with each other, and it's a way for also the people who want to discover the benefits of drone technology to actually go talk to the people working on this and build collaborations, build a bit more kind of, as I mentioned, marketing and sales, right? These being such a big priority, events are unique because they allow people to interact with each other rather than actually, publishing articles or seeing something that is a bit more indirect, And so again, events are like fantastic thing to actually get the industry moving again. And that's why you're also seeing a lot of events really becoming more and more popular and more attended each year.
Thank you very much. Well, we have reached the end of this webinar. I say goodbye to our guests by sincerely thanking them for their valuable contributions. Mr. Agrelo, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting and for the very good presentations by colleagues and the questions that were very well targeted.
Mrs. Sejuela, thank you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and a lot of success in this new UnvexLive until next year in Barcelona.
And Mr. Alvarado, thank you very much as well.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for bringing us together here. Hopefully we meet in person in Barcelona. Should be fantastic.
See you then. Well, you can now turn off your microphones and cameras. Well, to finish, I just want to tell you that this first free webinar marks the launching of UnvexLive, a digital platform where anyone interested can find information and interact with each other to will become finally in a meeting agenda. You can now check the Unvex 24 digital channel. Is in UnvexLive. It's in unvex.es. Now you have more information, the website infodefensa.com and infodron.es. See you. That's all.